Female technology journalists report abuse is still the name of the game. Written by Catherine Adams and published by The Guardian. The war on women in tech genre is very samey, and I've been trying to avoid looking at too many pieces like this, but I think this one is a standout. As you can tell from the title, this piece focuses on journalists rather than women actually working in tech. Wherever and whatever this tech they constantly talk about is, they kinda make it sound like a gay nightclub. We deserve to be able to have a good time safe from sexual abuse, and men have had control of this club for far too long. Let us into tech. Before we even crack into the text of the article, it starts off with a picture of some kind of, I don't know, crying rodent? So I think anyone can immediately tell something's a bit wrong here, and that impression is not helped one bit by the piece's introduction. A few months ago, I stared out of the window, wondering whether to change my name. I'd been advised I might consider doing so if I wanted to report on video gaming. It was hard to imagine a cacophony of hate in a silent house under the quiet shade of 100-year-old chestnut trees. But women in tech, such as games developer Zoe Quinn, had told me about being terrorized, made homeless, or screamed at by a Nazi down the phone at night. Quinn was targeted by groups, mostly of young men, who saw her as a symbol of socially aware critiques of misogyny in gaming to which they objected. Who knew that there was such a thing as games journalist fanfiction? The only thing scarier than the fact that this was written seriously is that it was written by someone who is a senior lecturer in anything. Skipping ahead a couple paragraphs, we learn that she has actually done some research on this. I wondered if women were having to hide their identity, not to work in tech, but just to write about it. Research I conducted for Nottingham Trent University found 1 in 5 female journalists covering technology has disguised her gender to avoid sexist abuse, and nearly 40% have changed working practices for fear of being targeted. And then you get this little picture showing you how people responded. Most interestingly, to me, is the last bit. Should more be done to stop abuse towards female journalists? Most of the respondents seem to be into that, and what kind of monster would say no to doing more to stop the abuse of women? Especially if the respondents themselves are women. Why would any of them oppose more help against the abuse they face? And how could you possibly oppose more being done to stop their abuse when you know so many of them must want and need it? Let's take a look at some of the horrors they have to face and that need to be stamped out. Referring to their own survey and also something done by the Women's Media Foundation, the writer says, "What comes across in the hundreds of anonymous comments is a chilling normality. Insults about my knowledge, rape threats, the usual," writes one. "Commenters routinely call me names when I write about topics like Bitcoin and diversity in tech," says another. The 100 respondents also describe a plague of face-to-face incidents, from sexist views in the newsroom to being hit on and stalked. 4 out of 10 said fear of being attacked has affected their work or altered their writing. See, here's the thing. Attacks here range from someone's intelligence being insulted online by random people in comment sections to being stalked in real life. I'm getting a very jumbled impression of what's up. I mean, listen to this very next line. One woman reveals, "I've learned how to keep quiet so as to reduce abuse." Besides sounding like Dr. Seuss, it conjures an image in my mind of a woman crying locked away in a cupboard. Shh, we've got to stay quiet. The boss might say something sexist again and I'll get stalked on the way home. But then I carry on. I finish reading the paragraph. Another recounts giving her article to a male colleague to file to escape attacks and, quote, "I avoid topics I really want to speak about because I know I can't handle the backlash," unquote. And it all comes into focus again. They're talking about mean comments, aren't they? Maybe 1 or 2 people are like, "I got stalked," but that's not what this is about. I do have to say it's a smart idea. Cramming all these bad effects next to your mention of stalking certainly creates a sense of urgency. But that is the peak of the article. From here, it only skis downhill into triviality. Some observations read like confessions. When I play games online for review, I try to avoid speaking. There have been times when I said something like, "Guys, I think there's a girl in here," or something equally stupid. So this journalist stays quiet and forgets that she herself is a woman. You heard it here first, folks. Video games make you trans. She continues, Other observations read like moral dilemmas. It feels like simply attaching a female identifier to any online account is a cry for attention. Never mind thoughts or opinions about this one, I just want to give you a reminder. This is commentary from journalists about what affects their work as a female journalist. This is an issue a professional has. This is not the result of someone interviewing a 12-year-old. Am I alone in thinking that this sounds like the kind of issue a tween might have with the Counter-Strike community, rather than a supposedly adult journalist? And this leads us to the section that I think hits at the core of this issue. Just 35% of tech journalists are female, according to a Columbia Journalism Review report. Now some are putting down their pens for good. The other female journalists I know are brave and strong, one told me, but they shouldn't have to be. Many that I admired have left. After this, the article has some more stuff, including, we have to deal with men's wrongdoings and blah blah blah. But this is where I'm stopping. Yes, they should have to be brave and strong, actually, even if they're female and the patriarchy's getting them down. What use is a weak and cowardly journalist if you don't have the fortitude to deal with shit talk on voice chat or mean comments under your articles? Messages that say, I'm gonna kill you or whatever. What can you stand up to? I think that, ideally, journalists should be aiming to serve the public. You are demanding that the world trust you. Who in their right mind would trust someone who is not courageous? I am glad these people are dropping out of journalism. Who knows how little it would take to make them screw over their audience. When you become a kind of activist journalist, fighting for journalists, not in the face of, say, censorship or anything else that could get in the way of them serving the public, but rather in the face of the public not responding properly to their work. That is parasitism, pretending to be a journalist and aiming to change the public to better serve them. But, as usual, that's just another one of my harmful opinions. And by the way, having women in tech forced to disguise their identity and even quit the industry after facing threats online, study finds, under the headline, and then having it turn out it's the writer citing their own little questionnaire, and quoting someone who says how important the writer's own study is. Yeah, I don't think the insults she'd be receiving if The Guardian had enabled comments would be because she's a woman.